This is my guide to Maple Tail. Alright, let's talk about the early game. In Maple Tail, the more XP that you get early on, the faster you'll progress through the game, and the faster you'll unlock the content, the bigger lead that you'll have over your opponents. The best ways to get XP early on in the game is to buy the XP Talisman pack. This is one of the best packs in the game, and it's highly recommended that if you are a spender, that you get this one early on. Other options include buying the 3 hourglasses for $1. If you do this every single day, then you'll also get the daily rewards where you have to spend $1 for it, and it's the most efficient way to spend money in the game. If you're willing to spend $30 a month, then this is a really, really great way to get ahead. The next way is to get XP bonus lines on your refinements. So if you go to the Forge tab and you go to Refine, you can use refinement stones to roll for XP percent as a bonus. And this is a really, really great way to increase your experience, especially when offline hosting. And let's talk about that. So what is offline hosting? Offline hosting, basically, it calculates XP to give you while you're offline. So if you click the hosting button and you see all the bosses, you basically check all the bosses, you click start, and based off of what map that you're in, it will give you experience proportional to the level of the mobs in that map. This is great because it means you don't actually have to be strong enough to kill the mobs. You just have to AFK in that map. There's usually going to be a map that says XP farming. That's the recommended map for you to farm in. That's the highest level map. I'm not in it right now because I just like this map better. But yeah, it's pretty easy. You click XP farming, and then you click on hosting, and then you can offline host for up to 12 hours. There's also an online team farm. The online team farm gives you a lot more experience, but you need a lot of teammates online. The downsides are that you don't fill up your gallery, which gives you a lot of bonuses. This is really nice to fill up early on in the game, and you don't get any boss drops. All right, sprite upgrades. So sprites are a huge part of the game that start really, really early on. So it's a very important thing to know so that you can start getting the best sprite possible from the beginning of the game. So the first thing to know is that every single day you're going to be getting these pet foods. You can feed the pets, and what that does is it gives you more flat stats and it increases this skill level. This skill level will go up just incrementally every single 10 upgrade levels, and so it's important to focus all your foods into your main pet. You can actually release your pet and get back 90% of the XP materials if you need to, so it's okay if you feed the wrong pet. The other half of pets is called Devour. So Devour is very important. Here it says, upon devouring, you will gain a random skill or level up a skill. What that means is if you have a copy of your pet and you basically eat it, then you will upgrade this passive. So this passive is incredibly important, especially in the late game and for min-maxing, because a lot of your damage and a lot of different possibilities and different builds are based around these passives. Devouring also gives you a chance to stage up your pet. So if we go look at all the different stages in a pet, there's 3 different stages. When you first get the pet, it's going to be stage 1, and you have a 5% chance every single time that you devour a copy to stage up into the next pet. And what that does is it increases basically it buffs the ability so that it becomes even stronger. All right, what are the best pet passives? So this just goes for all damage in the game, but the best sources of damage are going to be crit rate and crit boost. So crit boost says crit damage is crit boost, and here's crit rate. These are the best stats in the game for damage. Then would be damage amp, and after that would be attack percent. There are builds that will probably use fixed damage and fixed damage amp, but they are kind of gated behind yellow relics, which is pretty pay to win. Later on, they might be good builds, but right now they aren't as good. Crit resist is always useful because crit rate is so powerful. Crit damage reduction is also always useful but some people will go for straight up crit resist builds and they don't need as much crit damage reduction because of it. Evasion is a very powerful defensive stat, but you need a lot of it for it to work because a lot of people get hit rate just naturally, and that will decrease your chances of dodging. You need to overcome their hit rate by a significant amount if you are going for an evasion build. But in PvE, evasion is probably better than crit resist and crit damage reduction. So if you're a PvE build, evasion is probably better. Defense percent, HP percent, those are all useful. And MP and MP percent are the only useless stats, except for mages. Mages can use MP, but for the other classes, it's not very good. The passives also have different colors. So the colors are basically green is the worst, then blue, then purple, and yellow is the best. So when you're re-rolling for pets, basically what you can do is you can go get a pet. Let's say I get this baby mouse, right? And then I keep looking for another baby mouse. And I didn't find one yet, but here's one. So I get this baby mouse, and I have two. And I can look at the pets and see what passives that they have. So let's say I'm happy with this basic damage amp. It's not the best. The green ones aren't definitely not as good. I think the green ones are 40% of the yellow ones. The purple is 60, the blue is 60 and the purple is 80%. So if you get a purple ability, then it is 80% as good as the yellow version. These passives max out at level 10, and you can have up to 4 passive abilities. So let's say I'm not happy with this basic damage amp. So then I go to this pet, it doesn't even have a passive, and I'm going to devour it, and I'm going to see what I get. Alright, so I got a blue fixed damage, which, isn't great. I don't think that's keepable, but I can just keep doing this until I roll something good, and then inevitably, after enough rolls, I'm going to get a really great passive. And that puts us into a place where we can look at which pets are actually worth getting. So if we look at the pets, they actually have these different colors. Blues cost 10 books, purples are 50, oranges 200, and the reds are 600. So generally the reds are pay to win, but there is actually a free to play way to get a maxed out Crimson Blood Demon. You're never going to get good passives on pets that cost a lot of books. And it's because you need 40 copies. 40 copies of 600 books is way more expensive than 40 copies of 10 books. So 40 copies of 10 books only takes 400 books. That is less than a single copy of your red pet. But luckily, you only need 1 copy of most of the red pets because their skills are better than a lot of the passives that you could get even on a maxed out blue pet or purple or orange or whatever. So basically, there's 3 different strategies. One is to roll for a good passive. This is, I think, the best way to go. It's the cheapest way to go. It's the easiest way to go. It doesn't require any special farming. You just have to know what passives that you want. So some people will go for builds that specifically require things like evasion or crit resist, and they'll look at these 2 pets. They'll look at the Dancing Lion and the Cupidling. So they'll be convinced that the passive, the static stats, like crit resist or crit rate, crit damage by 4%, that this is really significant, and so they're gonna roll for a Cupidling. The reason that that's a mistake is because these numbers are pretty low compared to what you would be getting from just yellow passives. And it is possible to roll on a 50 pet like Cupidling or Dancing Lion, but you have to use something called infusion fluids. So infusion fluids are these fluids. They basically re-roll your pet passive, and what it does is it takes the total amount of levels. So let's say I have 10 here, and it will basically level up your pet 10 times again. And so you might end up with just two passive skills that are level 5. So you have to be careful to know that you need a good critical mass of skill levels before you start using your infusion fluids. Here I got really lucky. On a purple pet, I was able to roll crit rate and crit damage, which is probably the best 2 possible. So I am going to use this pet eventually, but something about the the Blood Demon pet is that the skill is actually so strong that it's better than any other damage passive that you could possibly roll. Even if you rolled the best 3 damage passives gold, it still wouldn't be as good as a stage 3 Blood Demon pet. And there's some strategies where you can actually have 2 pets, one with a good skill and one with a good passive. And we can go over that later. All right, so let's talk about the free-to-play Blood Demon method. So it is possible to save up Sky Crystals to buy a legendary pet egg. Here is a picture of what's called the bargain event. The bargain event happens pretty early on when your server starts, but if you miss it, then it's okay because there's still ways to get legend pet eggs. There's also ways to roll books for it just normally. So here it says if you search 80 more times, then you'll find an SS Sprite. Sometimes it doesn't say this. Sometimes it says find an S Sprite or something like that. So, just know that it is possible to roll books for it, but it's going to be pretty rare. Basically, you can free to play get this legendary pet egg, but that would only give you the stage 1 version of this pet, which is pretty weak. Actually, you need it to be stage 3 for it to be significantly good. And the way that you stage up isn't by devouring. You don't care about how many passives it gets. You just want to buy these Sprite Evolution cards. So how do you get these Sprite Evolution cards? You can get them through events using Sky Crystals. Or if you're pay to win, easily you can get them. But if you're free to play, then you can actually buy these lucky gold cards from the guild shop. So the guild shop, you can buy 6 of these daily. And if you get enough of these cards, it might take you a couple months. But if you get enough of these cards, you can actually save up the coins that you get from the weekend event, which is where you use these gold cards. And you can get a Sprite Evolution card. If you get 2 of these, then you'll be able to get the maxed out Crimson Blood Demon, which will give you a pet on par to the strongest whales in the game. This is such a strong pet that it offsets probably thousands of dollars worth of whaling. It's so strong that it's just extremely significant, and it's something that every pet should be using, or every whale should be using as well. So you basically are making yourself competitive if you get this pet. If they aren't using that pet, then they're gonna be gapped by you really easily, just because it gives you so much damage. All right, mid-game priorities. Let's talk about those. So good weapon refinements are very underrated. Refinement stones are just incredibly important in the amount of strength that you have in the mid game. Getting a tier 15 auto attack is also incredibly important. Basically, every class has an auto attack ability where every couple of seconds it will replace your auto attack, but at tier 15 it makes the cooldown disappear, so it replaces every auto attack. This is really important for DPS in general. Getting to tier 7 Mystic and getting to 68,000 combat power is important if you want to farm infusion fluids. To be honest, this is more of a later game thing unless you have a partner who's doing the same thing as you and you can duo the boss with them. The only way to kill that boss is if you duo it when you're this weak. It took me, I think, at 100,000 combat power, I was able to solo the boss. But for a lot of people, it'll take them up to 120 or 140,000 in order to solo that boss, because I'm playing a build that's pretty good at killing it. And basically what you can farm is those infusion fluids, which you can re-roll purple pets with. Those infusion fluids, though, are pretty rare, and the resource that you use to farm them actually overlaps with another resource, which gives you other things, so you're going to be sacrificing some of those in order to get more passive rerolls. On top of that, I've been farming it for weeks, and it seems like you only get around 1 a week if you're farming it every day. So it's pretty rare. Upgrade relics as much as you can. Relics basically give you the biggest benefit at 1 star. So at 1 star or 2 stars, you pretty much have 50-60% of all the gains. At 3 stars, you'll have 80%. At 4 stars, you'll have 90%. And at 5 stars, you'll have 100%. So basically, there's huge diminishing returns, except the difference is that to get to from 4 to 5 stars, it costs 5 times as much to get from 1 or 2 stars. So it's not just, it's like 25 times harder to upgrade relics once they're 4 stars, and you only get like 10% of the return. So relics aren't that great to spam unless you are getting lucky on the gold relics. So if we go look at treasure hunt, the main noticeable thing is that you can pay to win for these gold relics. These gold relics are huge, and you can get enough shards actually to get them to like level 3 if you whale. Anything higher than that is really, really huge diminishing returns. And the reason is because you rarely get these red relic shards. So these red relic shards, there's only a 3% chance for you to get 2 shards. And there's so many of them that it's very, very hard to whale for them through this event. I would actually recommend that you save your sky crystals and your treasure hunts for events which require you to pull using treasure hunts, or just don't spend them on the treasure hunts. Instead, spend them on events where you can just straight up buy red relics, straight up buy pet eggs, sprite evolution cards, stuff like that. Red relics are game changing, and there are events where you can pay to win, like $1 a day for 30 days, and you can get a red relic. Or there's free to play ways to get it. Like in the hero shop, you can use this currency to get red relics. These are the game changing relics, and the yellow relics are also can free to play get them from the arena shop and from the hero shop as well. So whaling for relics is very temporary gains. It's a huge money sink. So there's that from day one, but it's actually not going to keep you ahead for very long. All right, let's talk about weapon refinements. So weapons can roll damage lines. Here I forgot to mention, but it's weapons and necklaces. So it's the if you go into your gear, it's the weapon and the necklace. These can actually refine damage lines. So if you look at mine, I have Lucky Strike 9 on both of them. But I think personally that Lucky Strike is actually worse than crit rate. Crit rate is probably the best. Attack speed is okay on archers. It's probably worse than crit rate still. So crit rate is just good to get. Lucky Strike is incredibly rare, but it's very consistent. It cannot be reduced pretty much, and so it gives you very consistent damage. I wouldn't go too hard into the Lucky Strike like I did. The only reason that I went for a Lucky Strike build is because I tried to roll for 12, which is incredibly rare. It's very, very hard. And I have a strategy where I roll on level 50 weapons because it's less expensive. And basically, Lucky Strike over 20 is very, very good. So whales might be going for that by using a red set. The red Lucky Strike set gives you 3 Lucky Strike. The XP Talisman gives you 3. So if you can roll 9 and 9, you can have like 23 Lucky Strike, which is pretty good. But I'd say just go for crit rate. So the other refinements on the other gears are things like skill levels, things like the full set for an entire class. That is even better because it gives a level to every single passive and skill in that job class. Notable things are crit resist. On the armor and the helm, you can get crit resist. Level 70 lines are bigger for that, and same with HP percent on the boots and armor. Level 70 will give you higher rolls for that. Whoops. What the? All right. So what builds are actually good in this game? Evasion is a good build, especially on archers, but it's a very high investment build. A lot of people will be tricked into going for the Dancing Lion, as I mentioned, because the ability gives you evasion. It gives you 3.5% evasion. It's actually not that much. 3.5% is nothing. You would need at least 40 to 60% evasion to even have a good chance at dodging some players. And some players can build hit rate to counter your evasion builds, which would make all of it useless. So it's important to note what other people are going for, especially within your server, and like to talk and ask around and see what builds people are going for. So yeah, it is possible to get a good evasion with a good pet passive and a high divination. So divination unlocks at level 60. It is in astrology, and basically you roll for these lines here that that are good lines, but you can only lock up to 5 of them. Level 4 Divination will unlock A tier lines, and level 6 unlocks S tier lines. This is a big money sink. It is whale territory and is definitely something that you only go for if you want to be a top player. So some people will actually ask, should they spend their resources in this normal astrology page where they get better drops and extra drops, or should they save it for level 60 to spend in divination? I think that if you do save it for level 60 for divination, it will give you the strongest immediate power boost, but the better drops and extra drops are going to give you resources over time. So eventually that will add up. Yeah, so basically save it if you are going for specific strategies and you want to be a top player for divination. But if you're okay with just farming the game out, then get the better drops and extra drops. All right. Yeah, we already talked about Lucky Strike and attack speed. Lucky Strike is a great build if you can get over 20, as it starts giving you attack percent. What does Lucky Strike do? It actually just gives you a chance to hit your maximum range. So if you look at this range, my main stat is strength. So I have 2779 to 4604. Basically, I'm hitting 4604 every single time because I have 20 Lucky Strike, which gives me 100% chance to, because it's 5% chance per Lucky Strike, 100% chance to hit this maximum range. Crit rate is always good. Your crit stats is where most of your damage is going to come from. So crit rate and crit rate boost are the most important stats for damage. People always talk about how fixed damage and fixed damage amp aren't that good, but it actually can be good, especially if you're on archer and especially if you wailed for a lot of yellow relics, because most of these stats are locked behind the yellow relics. Damage reduction is along with crit resist are really great defensive builds, but I would say crit resist is the easier build to go for because you can get a lot of this stat from refinements. So yeah. All right, biggest min-maxes. So these are the difference makers between players. Demon Pet Stage 3, that is a huge difference. That is a big deal. People with Demon Pet Stage 3 are just going to output so much damage that they're going to gap everyone else. Purple or gold level 10 pet passives. So if you roll a 10 cost pet, but you just happen to roll the god roll and just get crazy pet passives, then you have a chance at making builds that are even stronger than the Demon Pet Stage 3. Like, for example, if you roll into Evasion and Crit Resist, you probably have the best defensive build in the game, and you can all in on that and basically just be unkillable, especially if you're a warrior. High Divination, of course, this is the most pay to win version, at least besides relics, I'd say. Crit stats, yellow and red relics are of course important, which you can get from events, but eventually you're going to get them paid or free to play as well. Crit stats are important. Crit resist and evasion, I already talked about that. And refinements. Refinements are a big deal. You can sink a lot of refinement stones into refinements, and that can be a big money sink as well. Refinement stones you can get from the guild shop. You can get them with sky crystals, but you also get them daily. So eventually you will get good refinements no matter what. So yeah. Refinement strategies. So basically, if you didn't know, if you roll 3 orange lines on a gear, then you can actually smelt that gear and recoup all the stones that you invested into that gear. So basically what you can do is you can roll a bunch of stones on the gear. You don't get what you want. If you have some stones left over to roll 3 orange lines, then you lock 2 oranges, and then when you get the 3rd orange line, you just smelt the gear and you get all the stones back, and then you can try again. It's easier to roll on orange gears because you get more copies. So having more copies is a good thing because you get more tries, basically. And also to roll on lower level gear, like level 50 gear, is a lot easier because it costs a lot less stones and gold to roll. The level 70 gears are going to cost more gold and more stones, and if it's a red gear, you're also going to have less copies of it. So the hardest gear to roll on is level 70 red gear, but a lot of whales will be doing that because of the set effects. Alright, so let's talk about spending in this game. The Sky Crystal bonus and Deluxe bonus is definitely important for free-to-play players. So free-to-play players can buy the Sky Crystal bonus which cost 3,690 sky crystals, but they actually can recoup those sky crystals for free. So basically, at the end of the month or whenever, they can just buy this with their saved up sky crystals, and they can get back everything that they spent for free. The deluxe bonus probably isn't worth it. It's okay. It's not the best place to spend money for sure. These one-time packs, the 500% premium packs, are definitely the best packs in the game. This event, the bargain event, is really, 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 really good. If you look into how it works, basically, people can coordinate on discounting some of these things. The discount only lasts for like 1 or 2 or 3 hours or something like that. So you have to make sure everybody in your server is on the same page. This is just the best place to buy things because it gives you really, really great consistent prices for these things. And plus, you can get huge discounts on them. So even without a discount, it's honestly still pretty great price to buy these things, especially at the beginning of the game. So you can get things like Sprite Evolution cards, Pet Legendary Eggs, Red Relics, level 70 Ancient Chests. You can get all these sorts of things that would be helpful like later on in the game. And so getting them early is a huge deal, and getting them for such a good deal is also a huge deal. This makes the 3 times Sky Crystal top up from the very, very start, before you've done any of those top ups, way more valuable. Because it's just straight up a Sky Crystal to good thing conversion. A lot of events later are going to have RNG, or it's not going to be clear how much you need to spend to get something. And so you're going to end up wasting a lot because you don't know what you're going to get or when you're going to get it. For these ones, it's very, very clear, and it's a very, very good price. So it's a good event. I already said spending $1 a day, that's probably the best way to spend in the game if you're going to spend it all. So yeah, do that for the Red Relic. So we already talked about these things, but this is just a place to look at it. The 90-day perks, where you get 100 Sky Crystals a day, I think, is actually really, really, really great value. That's probably one of the best ones. Same with the Growth Fund. All right, so calculating damage. So there's a couple things that you would need to know in order to calculate damage. It's actually pretty complicated. I love video game math, and I love testing things, so I can very easily look at somebody's stats and tell if they have good damage for their strength. The main thing that I would look at is crit rate and crit rate boost. So I would say inevitably you want to get over 50% crit rate and over 100% crit rate boost. That is like a pretty medium level of strength. Even if you get to 100% crit rate is still very, very good. And crit rate boost over 200 is still very, very good. It's just such a huge damage increase that the dilution of the stats from getting more of it, which is a huge part of like damage calculation, it's kind of offset by just how good they are together. The next thing that I would look at is their damage amp percent. Some people don't focus on that at all, but it is okay to get up to 20 or 30 damage amp. Anything over that, I would say maybe you've been investing too much into it and you could have been getting more crit rate and crit rate boost. Your attack is your just flat stats that you get, your main stat. That is usually high because people wail in the game. So they just have good relics and they have good... the other place that you would get it is probably the mount. So the mount, you get a lot of flat stats. So stuff like that, they probably just have a lot of money invested in the game. The next thing that I would look at is crit resist and evasion. So I would say that evasion is kind of a waste of a stat if you are like at 20 or 30. You might as well just be at 0 because you're not going to dodge anyone. It would be good in PvE, to be honest, but PvP, it wouldn't really matter. So yeah, it would be better invested into any other stat. Crit resist is a stat that's just always good. The more crit resist you have, the better. If you're refining for crit resist on the armor and helmet, it's very, very efficient. Every strong player should be rolling for crit resist because crit rate is just so strong. So yeah, you need good offensive stats, but you also need crit resist and HP percent as defensive stats. All right, so if you want to support me, I can take a look at your account. I'm just going to basically use my knowledge to help you spend less to get more. I spent a lot of money on this game, not as much as most whales, but I can beat people who are a lot stronger than me, and I wish that I knew everything that I knew now, because if I could start over again, I would probably spend half as much and still beat people way stronger than I could beat right now. Just because knowing everything from the start of the game is so important. There's a lot of things that aren't obvious or clear, and it's hard to find these things out. So yeah, I can help you beat players that are stronger and create a strategy that will actually be really effective against people. And I also know a lot of secret technology that most players don't know that puts you ahead of the competition. So yeah, thank you for watching my guide. And also, if you do support me, I will happily answer any questions whenever you want, and basically hold your hand through this game, because it is a game where it seems like whales will always have an advantage, but if you know what you're doing, that's actually not the case. You can definitely get a lot done without spending a lot of money. So yeah, thanks for watching my guide.